right, welcome back, welcome back. This is my favorite part of the show. I know, and you hung in here till this part. Yes, I'm so glad. It's the questions from the audience, and sometimes they're a little bit naughty. But I don't read those. Senator Wielechowski, you'll be relieved. Questions from the audience. In war-torn Iraq, the producers signed contracts for as little as $1.39 per barrel. Do the anti-ACES legislators not know this?
This is a great point. Iraq is actually a great example. Iraq said they wanted to have one of their largest fields, I think it's the Ramallah field, developed. And so they actually went out to the oil companies and said, we will pay you a certain amount, a certain dollar per barrel if you develop that field. And the oil companies, of course, came in saying we wanted large amounts. The winner of that is now getting paid roughly $1.50 per barrel to produce the fields in Iraq, okay? ACES is a for-profits tax. The oil companies don't pay any taxes unless they make profits, okay? They don't pay any progressivity. So we have a 25% tax. They don't pay progressivity until they actually make $30 in profit. Does anyone know what it costs to lift a barrel of oil out of the ground and get it through the pipeline and to its destination? The cost is roughly $22 per barrel, okay? Oil is selling for $114 a barrel today. So I'm not a mathematician, but that's, what, $80 a barrel in profit, $90 a barrel in profit, okay? If the state of Alaska, and they're getting paid $1.50 per barrel to produce oil in Iraq, okay? And they're not getting shot at in Alaska. They're not getting assassinated. They're not having their pipelines blown up. Yeah.
There was the one brother in North Pole that missed his other brother. I want to be fair. But yes, you're right. I mean, you would think. In your opinion, why is Governor Parnell doing this? In my opinion, well, Governor Parnell was a lobbyist for Conoco-Philips. And I'm not sure that he got a let go notice. That's my opinion, and I don't, it's just my own. Why?
I can't answer the question. I have no idea why he's sponsoring this legislation. I really don't.
This next question, I agree with. I heard Lisa Murkowski talk about it a lot. I hear a lot about North Dakota and how they're booming. Have you been there? How does Alaska compare with North Dakota? We're not a square.
A few different things. One of the things, the tax rate in North Dakota is lower. There's no doubt about it. But when you look at tax rates, they're looking at the government take. What they're not factoring in, remember I said before, that if someone actually owns a piece of land that has oil under it, the government gets to have some small tax on it, but it's actually the person who owns the land gets the most money. So when you look at those tax rates, what they're not factoring in is a lot of those people are actually getting royalty returns, are negotiating royalty rates of between 30 and 50% on top of what the government take is. So I think when you calculate those in, the tax rates are actually much higher. But the other thing you have to factor in is, we just don't have the infrastructure up here in Alaska.
Right.
It's a cold Arctic environment.
So is North Dakota sometimes.
But they have roads, and they're able to build roads out to the oil patch. Here we have to do ice roads.
Right.
I mean, there are huge differences.
And they don't have another major country between them and the rest of the market.
That's right. I mean, and you don't have to ship it down a big pipeline that's going to cost you $6 just to ship it.
Exploration versus production versus tap. Ooh, fancy. If drilling and active producing wells are at an all-time high, why is volume declining in the tap, in the pipeline?
It's a great question. I mean, what's happening is, if you look, and I have a slide, I couldn't include it in here just because of time. What happens with oil fields is they spike up immediately, and then every single oil field in the world goes down. And there's just no way you can get around that, right? You can only get so much oil out of the ground. Now, we've gotten huge amounts of oil out of the ground. Remember, when TAPS was put into place, it was only expected to run until, I think, the year 2000, right? It was just extended. So this is all gravy for us right now. If you look at the federal government projections on what will happen with TAPS, you'll actually see that they're expecting that there will be increases down the line. And I would expect that there will be increases in tax.
And with the
down
bear
line.
company there.
Yes.
Why can't we impose a state income tax on non-Alaskan residents, i.e. income tax for Texan slope workers? Because it's unconstitutional.
Yeah.
The only way that you can make sure that we have Alaska Hire, correct me if I'm wrong, is if you have project labor agreements and the labor unions that get the jobs then can hire local first.
Yeah, it's unconstitutional. We've tried it, and we'd love to be able to just tax the people that come up from outside. We can't do it. So yeah, project labor agreement is pretty much all you're left with.
Why does Governor Parnell hate Alaska? Because we're free. We're free as long as we get a dividend check. Then you can do whatever you want. Effective tax rate. Does the effective tax rate include all applicable tax credits to energy companies?
Yes, it does. You have effective tax rate, which includes what your credits that you get. Yes, so the effective tax rate does include everything.
Okay, good. Good question. Ooh, we have an accountant here somewhere. How much of this is driven by the price of oil, not the tax structure? I wonder this too. Are we trying to be the tail to wag the dog?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, there are so many factors that go into play in why a company would choose one place or another, right? Tax rate is one factor, but there are many, many other factors. I mean, the rocks, they call it the rocks. Geology is king, and we've heard that over and over and over again. If you have great oil basin, if you have great gas basin, you will have many investors coming to Alaska. I think the biggest problem that we have in Alaska is just infrastructure. It's just we don't have roads. It's extremely cold. You have extreme temperature conditions. And you have a basin, quite frankly, that's controlled by 3 companies. And so what happens is these smaller companies come into Alaska. Let's say you're a small company. You want to come into Alaska. Well, you have to build the roads. You have to build the infrastructure. Where are you going to produce your gas or your oil? You have to get a production agreement to have your gas or your oil produced in a Prudhoe Bay production facility or a Kapark production facility. This can be extremely expensive, and it can take years to do. And if ConocoPhillips says, yeah, we don't want to produce your oil, what are you going to do? Or we'll only produce it if we charge you X number of dollars. What are you going to do? The other problem that companies have had over the years is access to the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. This is a huge problem. If you can't get your oil in the pipeline for a reasonable tariff, then your oil is not profitable to ship. And so guess who owns the oil pipeline? BP, Conoco, and Exxon. And so they set the tariff, and for years they've set the tariff at an extremely high rate. In fact, they've had several judges in the recent years tell them, you're charging too much. They didn't care because they took money out of one pocket and put it in the other pocket because they own the pipeline. And the beauty of it was they got to write it off of their taxes. We got less, you know, the TAPS was supposed to cost $900 million. The oil pipeline, it was built by the oil companies. Anybody know how much it ended up costing? They were only off by $800 million.
Was Bill Sheffield?
$8 billion. $8 billion. It was actually ended up, it was supposed to be $900 million. It was $9 billion. I mean, talk about missing the mark.
Was Bill Sheffield in charge? Just wondering. Since oil companies took off the easier liquidy oil off the top, what do you expect Alaska to give up to help them pump the sludge oil deposits? Carbon.
You know, it's an interesting question, and that's sort of the debate right now. The way ACES is structured, the more it costs you to develop your oil, the more tax break you get, right? And actually, it's interesting. The way Prudhoe is in existence. Prudhoe, if you think of it in very rudimentary terms, is like a lake, right? And actually, the oil from Prudhoe came from this reserve called the Shublik. They call it the fairway. It's basically a massive fairway that is tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions years old. And that oil basically migrated from Shublik into Prudhoe Bay, okay? The thing is, only about 20% of the oil migrated from Shublik into Prudhoe Bay, which means and we've taken billions of barrels of oil out of Prudhoe Bay, right? This is where this company, Great Bear, is coming in saying, we're in Shublik right now. This is where that oil has stayed, where the vast majority of the oil has stayed. That's why this is so exciting, and we expect there's going to be many more companies coming in trying to get access to the Shublik field.
So that goes against, and this question is, what do you say to the skies falling rhetoric? When the production falls below a certain per barrel a day volume, the pipeline will shut down. Why would this big bear, great bear, happy bear, want to come to Alaska and go up there and start doing business if we're going to be shutting the pipeline down because there's nothing there?
Well, I've talked to a lot of people. I was the co-chair of the Resources Committee for 2 years. I'm the vice chair right now. I've been on the committee for 4 years. I've talked to all kinds of experts. I've talked to all kinds of administration officials, asking them, is the pipeline going to shut down? And people sort of laugh when I ask them that question. Basically what they're saying is there is no way the oil companies are going to leave hundreds of thousands of barrels on the North Slope, especially at $100 a barrel oil. All they have to do, it does present some challenges, some engineering challenges. You put compressors on the pipeline, right? You heat the oil. I mean, it's not rocket science to get oil from point A to point B, but there are some engineering challenges. But they're making so much money on the North Slope, they get to write off their investments, and it will keep the oil flowing. I don't think it's going to shut down. I just don't think it's going to shut down anytime soon. I don't think they're going to leave trillions of dollars worth of oil on the North Slope.
Well, it would seem they would be derelict to their charter to their shareholders if they did.
They're going to try to get every last drop of oil they can out of the North Slope.
Well, we still have so many more questions, but we're out of time, and I want to make sure. Well, first of all, thank you for coming and talking about this, because I know it's not easy. There's so much money that's out there right now trying to convince Alaskans that House Bill 110, if it's not passed and ACES isn't rolled back and we don't give $10 to $15 billion back to oil companies, that we're all going to dry up and blow away. A lot of Alaskans were here before the oil was discovered. And I want to ask people at home and people here in the audience, please contact your legislators. Even if you think, oh, for the love of God, I know they put oil on their pancakes in the morning before they eat them. Even if it's that person, call them, have a conversation. Find this broadcast online, send it to them, send it to your friends, and feel free to call Senator Wielechowski and ask him questions at home. No, I'm kidding, don't. But people can contact your office.
Call
if
my
they have
office, send me an
questions.
email. And I've done this presentation. Actually, the whole presentation is about 65 slides. We obviously don't have enough time for that, but I'm happy to talk to people. This is an important message. This is the most important piece of legislation in front of the legislature right now. If we pass this bill, we are literally giving away our future. We are literally giving away tens of billions of dollars over the lifetime. And one thing I didn't mention, there's no guarantees by the oil companies to increase production. They refuse. They refuse to guarantee increased production. They refuse to guarantee increased exploration. They refuse to guarantee more jobs for Alaskans.
So contact people. We'll be back next week. Thank you so much, Senator Wielechowski. We're fresh out of time. We'll be back next week with more Up North. We are?